I am Mohammed Saghir. I'm an independent consultant, and as far as my education is concerned, I have two master degrees, Master of Commerce and Master of Political Science. I have worked with different international organizations from 1984 to 2008. Those are USAID, United Nations World Food Programme, CRS, and UNDP. And in these organizations, my main role was related to project management, and the projects were related to development as well as emergency projects. So I can also share my experience when I talk about emergency projects because I have been working for those projects in senior level positions. I am working as an independent consultant since 2008, and some of my major services that I rendered to different organizations include Atlantic International University. This is my fourth class with this university, and it is my pleasure to be here. And I have been working for training need assessments, conducting training, and for different international organizations, I have carried out series of monitoring and evaluation studies. In addition to that, I have conducted research surveys. When I talk about surveys, that was related to poverty assessments and rapid need assessments. And accordingly, I have been writing reports for these projects. I have worked with different organizations related to disaster risk management, and one of them was World Bank. And for that project, I worked as head of team lead, and my role was related to development of 5 years disaster risk management plan and standard operating procedure for the province of Balochistan, Pakistan. And today is the second part of disaster risk management class, and the first one was held last month. I'm pleased to let you know that the last class, which was on DRM part 1, got the attention of YouTube viewers, and some 350 persons viewed our class. It confirms that topic of disaster risk management selected by Atlantic International University is an important topic, and more classes on such topics are needed. As far as the objective of the class is concerned, this class will enable us to gain knowledge on disaster management terms and concepts. We will discuss different management terms, concepts, and as I mentioned in the last class, we have covered some of them. I will talk about those later on. And to develop understanding about type of disasters. That is one of the objectives also. And we will discuss different phases of disaster management. In fact, those are 4 phases: preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. To learn how to manage disaster, we will discuss with the help of these 4 phases of disaster management, how we can manage disaster. And we will discuss the humanitarian principles while working as a volunteer in relation to disaster risk management or for any of the development project activities. The class structure of today's is, first of all, we will review the DRM part 1 of last session. And then we will start the presentation of this class, which is Disaster Risk Management Part 2. During this class, frequent break and for questions, comments, and discussions. I will stop for those so that you can have questions, comments, or discussions. And after some topics or subtopics, I will stop and request your questions and comments. And during this presentation, there will be some questions for you so that you can also interact on frequent basis. This class will include 2 short videos up to 2 to 4 minutes of each related to disaster risk management. As far as the presentation and the copy of this presentation is concerned, that will be updated on the system of AIU, and all the participants can have access to it. In our last class, now we are going to review part 1, the last class. In the last part 1 class, different types of disasters, including natural and human disasters, were discussed. Common terms and related to DRM, including resilience, recovery, vulnerability, and more topics were discussed. I will also touch base on these topics again, just to refresh our memories related to the last class. And phases of disaster risk management, we touched upon 4 phases. And today we are going to discuss in detail all these 4 phases. So just for the sake of refresh our memories of the last class, I'll start with what is disaster. It is an incident that harms human life, property, and disturbs social activities. In any kind of disasters, human being is suffered, properties are lost, there is loss of lives, and different social activities are interrupted. When we talk about social activities, those could be like schools, universities, and colleges could be closed due to the disaster. The health clinics, the health centers, or other social welfare organizations and the government offices in severe cases could be closed. In fact, the disaster exceeds the capacity of community to cope using its own resources. Every community has a limited resources to cope with any kind of disaster. When it is exceeded to their capacity, then it is a problem for them. And in that case, outside help may be from within the country, within the organizations, that is required by the community. In our last session, we talked about two types of disasters that can be natural and human-made disasters. As far as natural disasters are concerned, again, for the sake of refreshing our memories, I'm repeating this. Natural disasters are predominantly associated with natural process and phenomena. And as the name indicates, it is from nature. But sometimes, because of our such activities, those create such problems. For instance, if we talk about overcutting of trees, that can exceed the flooding, for example. It is caused by Earth's natural process that leads to significant environmental degradation and loss of life. The example which I gave, overcutting of trees, is one of the example which is related to environmental degradation. Last time we discussed in detail about earthquake, tsunami, floods, drought, volcanoes, wildfire, landslides, glacier, hurricane, typhoon, cyclones, thunderstorms, and tornadoes. These are some of the major, as Dr. mentioned about the heat waves, yes, that is, and cold waves, those are also the natural disasters. And now I will again share the terms, those are used in disaster risk management, and those were discussed in detail in the last session. Those were emergency, rapid need assessment, these are the terms. Resilience, contingency plan, recovery, vulnerability, and hazard. These are few of the commonly used terms related to disaster risk management. During the last class, there was a question, why are the tornadoes named after female? And the detailed answer to that question is the US decided in the early 1950s that only used female names would be used for tropical system. It is not exactly certain why this was the case, but some believe that because maritime traditions refer to the occasion as a woman, this may have influenced the decision. This is the detailed answer to that question. Now here I will break to receive your questions on our last meeting or class. And I would request Dr. Lambert to allow the participants one by one so that I may answer their questions, comments, or concerns.
Okay, thank you so much, Mohammed Saghir, for the presentation. We will now go to questions. So if you have a question, you can write it into chat, or you can raise your hand. Down below, you'll go to the reactions part of the menu where it says reactions. You click on reactions and you'll see a bar there to raise your hand. So, does anybody have any disasters going on that you can talk about? Here we go. We have Friday, Omuda women. Go ahead. Go ahead and activate your microphone.
Good afternoon, Dr. Lambert, and good afternoon, our dear lecturer for this afternoon. My question is on, yes, my question is on disaster. I want to ask, before disaster could happen, for instance, in the case of earthquake, what are the signs one is to look out for? I want to believe that such disaster doesn't just happen suddenly. There may have been some signs. So do you know what are the kind of signs one should look out for before such disaster could happen, so that one could be able to take the appropriate precaution?
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, you are right. There are predictions about different types of disasters. For instance, heavy rain, flood, and so on, and heat waves, cold waves. But there is no clear prediction for the earthquake. But it doesn't mean that we don't have to be prepared in case it happens. When we are going to talk about the preparedness, I will touch upon that what kind of preparedness is required. So in any kind of disaster, human lives can be saved and the losses could be minimized and the loss of losses could be minimized. But as I mentioned, there is no such a prediction that when the earthquake is going to take place. Next question, please.
Next question is from Zachariah Abdi.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Hello, good day to you.
Good afternoon, good morning,
afternoon.
good evening for everybody. I'm calling you from Somalia, a country that has been an endemic disaster since 1991. Most of them man-made, but I just want to mention the one we have during that tsunami, sea tsunami. We have the longest coast of Africa, 3,333 kilometers, an Indian Ocean, as well as Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. So we have been affected a lot for our coastal communities. A lot of cities, or a lot of actually rural areas, has been smashed. Their lifestyle have been destroyed because their boats for the fishing. All these communities have disasters in light with that scale of tsunami. But unfortunately, for the help of rural the communities inside the country and the international community, we have recovered now. We have suffering now from environmental disaster, because there were no government who were caring the environment. Therefore, we have a desertification. We have loss of flora and fauna in the country, and this is really in a scale that you cannot imagine. So this is my. I have no question, but just I want to tell you what's going on in the Horn of Africa. Obviously, there are other countries who share with us these things, like Ethiopia, for example, has its problem. Sudan now. It's a man-made disaster. Two groups are fighting each other, the government and the military and the other paratroopers. So this is how we live here.
Welcome from Somalia. And in fact, while working with the United Nations, I have been working with my Somalian colleagues. There were many colleagues from Somalia. So they have been telling me about their country time to time. I'm talking this about 1989. And I have been working with them. And as far as your comment is concerned, you are very right. And the care of environment, it is a common responsibility by the government, community, and different stakeholders. And you are right, if it is not addressed properly, then it becomes a hazard. Thank you very much for your positive and informative comment.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad.
Thank you. Is next question?
Now we'll go to Morgan Kalumba. If you can activate your microphone. There is a question in chat.
Hello?
Oh, there we go.
Hello, yes.
Yeah, this is Morgan from Zambia.
Hello, Morgan.
Good afternoon to all of you.
Good afternoon.
Yes, just to make a follow-up comment on how can you tell that a disaster is about to take place? For instance, places, excuse me, for instance, in areas where there are earthquakes, some countries are prone to earthquakes. It doesn't really happen here in Zambia, but in some countries. But what I've heard others say that you can detect that an earthquake is about to happen by looking at the behavior of animals, especially the dogs, you know, those petty dogs that we keep at home. How true is it that looking at the behavior of dogs, you may find that they will start barking anyhow, very unusual. Can that really mean that a natural disaster like an earthquake is about to happen?
Right, the example which you gave, again, it is related to advance warning to the community that this type of, for instance, you mentioned about the earthquake is going to take place, and you mentioned about the movement of different animals. In fact, it is so quick, and that if you see the movement of the animals, those are, I mean, traditionally told that you can observe from them. But unfortunately, that information could not be passed on to many people that it is going to happen. So this is sort of a big problem in this case, especially related to earthquake, that there is very difficult to give any advance warning to the community. But as far as the preparedness is concerned, the rest of the disasters, advance warning is one of the preparatory measures to reduce the loss of losses and the property. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Please, next question.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my name is Abubakar. I'm based in Nigeria. Thank you, Dr. Lambert, and then the presenter. My question is this.
Hello, I can't hear you.
It's regarding the distinction between natural hazard and disasters. In our perspective, distinction between natural hazard and disasters, because there is a school of thought that says while hazards are natural, disasters are natural. And he cited an example of a flood, for example. When a flood happens where there are no people that settles on the floodplain, or there are no buildings along the floodplain, of course, disaster will not happen. So I want you to share your thought with us. How do you really distinguish between these two, natural hazard or natural disasters? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your question, and I welcome you. First of all, we are going to talk about the flood in this case. Just to clarify, hazard and natural hazard. So first of all, the thing is that in case of flood, when there is a lot of rain and drinking water, there is shortage becomes of drinking water. And due to shortage of clean drinking water, different waterborne disease take place. This is a hazard to health. And what? Because again, it happened because of natural disaster. So hazards could be another case. For example, when we talk about man-made hazards, poor structure of a building or poor structure of a dam could become a hazard in big floods, in high floods. So this is, this is the difference when we talk about the hazards. The hazards are associated with natural disasters as well as man-made disasters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We go to Maureen Mirembe.
Hello. Hello,
Hello.
Professor
Hello.
Lam.
Hello.
How are you? My question is, what do you do in the event of natural disaster as a person? For example, your property has been destroyed, or like if it's a fire and it's the only, let me say, home you have. What do you do in such an event? Does insurance help? What other ways can you help yourself, especially when you've lost all your property? Like, for example, I've seen people who lose like restaurants, or they, like, let me say, the things I see on BBC and CNN, someone loses a restaurant in a fire that has existed for generations as a family business. What do you do in such cases? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. As far as the losses and the coping mechanism of the community is concerned, in the very beginning, I mentioned that when there is a disaster, it becomes difficult to cope within their own resources. The community is not able to cope that disaster within their own resources which they have. As far as your prime question is concerned, that what are the mechanism and what is the way forward to overcome or to cope with that problem. In fact, it is different in different countries. For instance, if I talk about my country, Pakistan, there is a disaster risk management authority. In case of any kind of disaster, that authority, along with other government organizations or international organizations, they conduct rapid need assessments. During that assessments, their social needs, their rehabilitation needs, and the reconstruction needs are identified. And if a country like Pakistan can afford to bear all those expenses, then those are assisted, those communities assisted by the government. If not, then there is a mechanism for appealing donors to come in and help this community. So I would say it varies from country to country. And you also mentioned about the insurance. Yes, you're right. In some countries, you can get your house insured against any disaster, but you will not find this as a uniform policy in all the countries. Thank you. Yeah, please, next question.
Okay, our next question will be from Canbira Urcaido. Welcome. How are you today?
Hi.
Hello,
Hello.
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 Beloved professor and other participants, I thank you for your commitment in order to
You're welcome.
learn from this presentation. I would like to ask a simple question because I'm familiar with the issue. You have mentioned that there are man-made causes and natural causes for the disaster risk. So how we classify the COVID-19? What's the cause for COVID-19? Is it natural or man-made cause for COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay. In fact, any kind of disease that comes, that is basically the natural disaster, but it could be human-made disaster. For instance, if there is a drinking water, the last example I gave, and you don't know how to clean it and you use it, so then it is again a human-made disaster because you are hazard to different diseases. And in this class, I'm going to discuss in detail these types, so you will have clear answer to your questions related to man-made and human-made disasters. But basically, this is, I mean, the diseases, yes, of course, but there is a contributing factor to that. Because, for instance, in case of tuberculosis, if there is no proper treatment or prevention for that, then it can spread. Same is with other kind of diseases.
Okay. I have not got for answer for. I just have asked specifically what are the causes for COVID-19 pandemic. Are the cause for COVID-19 are human, man-made or natural?
It was a natural disaster.
Okay. I got the answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So would you say that there are hazards in the environment of like other viruses that are there, but they haven't crossed over to human beings and they're hazards?
Yes, these are hazards. Yes, of course. These are health hazards. Yes.
And then when it crosses over and causes deaths, then it becomes a disaster.
Yes, the nature of it spread, that is disaster.
Okay,
like
we'll go.
epidemic, endemic. In case of COVID, if it was limited to one country and then it spread to different countries, then its nature changed in terms of terminologies. And it was discussed in detail. I would request the participants to access my last PowerPoint presentation, which is available on AIU system, and you can have more details on that. In fact, all those questions, those were related to natural disasters, were discussed. And today, we are going to talk a little bit about natural disasters, but in detail about the human-made disasters. Since this is the second part, the first part covered majorly about the natural disasters. But again, there is a reference available, which I presented in my last class. It was on July 11th.
Okay, we'll go to the next question from Salisu Balamasi. Let's go ahead, activate your microphone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lambert.
Hello, good day to you.
Good to see you, sir. Dr. Muhammad Saghir, good to see you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thank you, everybody, sir. A nice presentation. Sir, I have this discussion or question, I will call it, that as an expert, that you have experience in this research that you are presenting to us. Did you in any way look at the causes of disasters as related to neglect by some religious beliefs? Sometimes you see that some beliefs will say, oh, anything that happened is from God. You know, if God don't want it, it will not happen, so that they will not stand up and do the needful in terms of preparedness and mitigations. Then, or do you see the causes as a leadership failure? For example, in Tunisia recently, there was a fire outbreak that people were using hand to kill the fire, and they ended up dying because there is no equipment. Or do you in any way see it in your research as a sin that humanities used to cause, that God used to send the disasters as punishment? Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. I'll take the example of wildfires in order to reply your questions, question and also the comment.
Okay.
Of course, the negligence contributes to the loss of any kind of damage or health loss or life loss. And you will be surprised to know that the wildfires are happened by majority of the human-made carelessness.
Okay.
And it is such a disaster which takes, like I would say, minutes or seconds to spread out. And who is contributing to that? It is us. Again, we have the wisdom that, for instance, if we are passing by, we should not throw a burning cigarette on the way. This is, I would say, this is one of the examples. Or filling at the few gas stations. What do? You avoid smoking. You avoid this kind of anything. So, of course, there is Allah, there is a God, but He has given us the wisdom to escape from that. These are the two examples, I think, that will reply your question.
Thank you so much, sir.
You are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We now go to Christopher Talimanja. Go ahead.
Hi.
There you go.
Yeah, thank Right, the doctor and the presenter. I am Christopher Mtarimanja from Malawi. My question is related to the issue of disaster risk management and preparedness in relation to data and reporting. Recently, Malawi has been affected with a cyclone, I think in almost 2 or 3 successive years. I have noted that when reporting, there have been just a general reporting without segregating the data or singling out some other vulnerable groups such as children and the elderly. And I feel that segregating or reporting data in lines with those that are heavily or that are mostly vulnerable to various disasters can help in preparedness strategies or interventions. So I just would like to find out from the presenter, from his experience, how does reporting and data support or can help in risk management as well as preparedness in disaster-prone areas? But also maybe how can countries and organizations improve on data reporting so as to inform the intervention strategies? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. For that purpose, yes, data collection and the correct data collection is very important. Like while rapid need assessment, we need to have reliable data. And coming to your point, there is a vulnerable group in every disasters. Who are they? They are children, women, and old persons. So there is a need to segregate that data according to the population and focusing on especially vulnerable people, but not ignoring others. It helps. But how to do it? When we talk about the preparedness, that is the time you have to prepare your data collection method, the formats, what is the important information which could be utilized. The major emphasis is on utilization that benefits the community or the affected population. If your data collection is so weak that doesn't provide relevant information and accurate information and disaggregated information, then you cannot proceed to next step, that is reconstruction and rehabilitation. So the preparedness time is with you, and you can prepare the mechanism how to collect it and how to sum up it and how to submit the reports and to whom and who would be responsible. Because at the time of disaster, you won't be having that much time to devise your mechanism of reporting and recording and reporting and data collection. Thank you.
Okay, who is next? Is it who is next? Because is it Abdul Lamin? Because Morgan Kalumba just asked the question, correct?
Hello, Dr. Lamba.
Hello.
I'm Professor Mohammed.
Do you have a natural disaster where you live?
I'm very much delighted to be with you. I only have one question to ask, intervening, taking the floor from Senegal. I would like to know, in a context in which there is entrenched corruption, in which victims cannot have access, to international aid, because of corruption in government circle, whether they be victims, of natural or human-made human disaster. What do you think, should be done for the victims, to have access to aid that has been siphoned or embezzled, by government officials?
Okay, thank you very much for your active participation and listening very carefully to the presentation. Without accountability, you cannot say that the misappropriation can be controlled. Here comes the strong accountability system that is a sort of ongoing monitoring system and interim reviews and external evaluations. So wherever in these phases, when you find some problem, there you can identify and take action. But if you don't have already the mechanism, but in some cases, what happens? The mechanism there, the rules are there, but those are not followed. So it is the responsibility of all the stakeholders, including the government, community, and other donors, who may be in case of disaster or in the development sector. It is not only for disaster, it is true for developmental activities or the routine activities of any organizations or government. So you have to be having a very effective means so that you can take action in order to control corruption. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Maureen Mirembe, you're on for your question.
Dr. Lambert.
Hello.
Okay. My query is, I'm actually worried because this thing of climate change, people don't seem to take it seriously. I see on BBC all the time the wildfires happening and on your end in Europe. It is so bad it has even started happening in some parts of Africa. The challenge is in my country where I stay, one of the energy sources, for example, I can say in my home, we use charcoal to cook, and charcoal, the way we make charcoal, they cut down trees and they burn these trees. And when they burn these trees, they make the charcoal. Unfortunately, in Uganda, majority of the homesteads, including the wealthy, use charcoal. And it's something you can't do away without in Uganda. It's so bad that even our forests have really been depleted. One of the main forests called Marira Forest, it has been so depleted. It's no longer a forest. It's just something you look at on the outskirts, as on the road. It's no longer a forest, and there are many other forests that have been cleared. This is so bad, and you know, like where I come from is such a major area because we have the Rift Valley, the East African Rift Valley. I think it affects the whole climate of the world. I don't know, should actions be taken in some of parts of the country, of the world, so that people become serious about, because now they're no longer calling it global warming, they're calling it global boiling. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing very important issue related to the environment. In fact, in order to reply your question, I would say in general terms, any activity which we do against the nature that cause problem or the disaster. You gave the example of cutting of trees. You are very right. This is one of the examples. And I would share my practical example with you that for the sake of irrigation of agriculture land, in old days, there was a system that was called carriage system, and that was built on gravity flow. But when the electricity came to those villages, they put tube wells to take out water. And those tube wells were running 24 hours. what happened? The groundwater went down. So this is what we are doing. Like this is man-made disaster, and we are contributing to degradation of climate change. And now coming to the action, as for action, first of all, the awareness raising in different countries, in different areas, there is a mechanism for awareness raising. And again, the policy is different to replant the trees and recharge the groundwater. The example which I gave, that was based on the recharge of groundwater. And once there was too well, it was dry. When the rain came, there was no bushes over there. So there was no big stones over there so that it can recharge the groundwater. So again, it is not so simple, but it is to be an ongoing effort that includes awareness raising, taking responsibility. All of us need to take the responsibility of it. Otherwise, we would say this is not my responsibility. It is going to be done by the government, or it is going to be done by the farmers. So then we won't be able to solve this problem. Thank you.
The thing is, I think the public it's high time they made the public get involved. Because, for example, where I come from, even in the wetlands, they build their permanent structures. The extent that there's someone I know who constructed a church in a wetland. At first, it affected that church. Now it's no longer a wetland because it got affected. A very big church. So it is something that has become cultural to do wrong things against the environment. And like it's allowed, it's okay. Everyone watches, no one cares. So I don't know, maybe there are concerned people in public who should take part, because even the government is not concerned.
Yeah, again it relates to taking the responsibility and awareness. And it's your own observation that you mentioned about cutting the trees, that who is suffering? We are suffering from that. So again, yes, for that matter, there has to be a leadership at the level of community to create awareness, at the level of government. And when we talk about the government, there has to be a policy to that, and that could be implemented through the community. So, and all the stakeholders. It requires a unite effort. But as far as the leadership is concerned, that could be at different levels. As I mentioned, at the level of government, at the level of community, and all the actions, those are required. Those has to be part of their country development plan, so that it is there, it is built in. So there is no lip service. There should be proper allocation of funds. And it has to be done as a policy matter, and it has to be done as as their developmental plan. Thank you.
Okay, we go to Dr. Caleb Maguto. Can you activate your microphone? There you go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I want to take this opportunity to thank the presenter for bringing in this topic at a time when it is needed. I want to point out that in the history of the world, right from the Bible up to the all sacred and secular history, has shown that when man abuses nature, nature will automatically fight back. In the Bible, we had the time of Noah where we had the floods because people had stopped worshiping God and obeying God. In the Bible again, we have the fire of Sodom and Gomorrah. When people decided to go against the laws, the natural laws of creation. And then when we come now to the world today, we go to Somalia. The people of Somalia decided to fight because they wanted freedom and liberation. It has taken other countries to bring back Somalia to where it is. Then we go to Libya. Libya, people came, they fought for liberation. Today, people are running away from Libya through the deep seas, looking for a better place to stay. Then you go to Sudan, people were also fighting dictatorship. And right now, they are even fighting the groups which were fighting dictatorship. Now they have become dictators and they are fighting. In my country today, which is Kenya, I look and see an individual who comes and tells people that if there is no food, unga, maize meal, they should go to the streets, demonstrate, and the process of demonstrating, they go destroying other people's businesses and bringing down infrastructure which has been expensively built. Now, what I want to say is this. Nature will always fight back. And most of the cases, the people who drive us to go against nature, them, when things go wrong, they take off and go elsewhere and watch us as we suffer. So what I'm saying is this, let everyone, let us not say we, let us say I. What can I do, I as Dr. Ribo, to help to reduce global warming? Can I be able to plant around, let's say, 20 trees every year and make sure they grow? Because it has come natural for man. When there is a problem and man complains about the problem and people listen, and man thinks that the problem has been solved. And then we sit back. So what I can recommend is that let's start with us, the people in this class. For those who come from areas where rain rains, let us try to plant at least 20 trees every year. And number two, Chinua Achebe, in his book known as Things Fall Apart, said this: a man does not chase rats when his house is on fire. I'm looking at the house which is the grass-thatched house, even these mansions. When the fire comes, the rats are running away so that they don't get burnt. So a man does not start chasing rats. Instead, he should start seeing how he can put off the fire. So when we talk about the government, and the government needs to do something. Who is the government? The government is me and you. So
Yes,
it is
we are.
us. It is us. Okay, when you go to the First and Second World War, after the war, there were so many disasters which followed the war. We were calling them the war aftermath.
Right.
In the DRC, people have been fighting. We have Ebola and so forth. So the best thing we can do, let us obey the natural laws and make sure we don't violate them. And then we'll be able to make sure that the disasters are reduced. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I 100% agree with your thoughts and ideas and recommendations that from where should we start? You very rightly said that it should be I, because I am head of the family. My wife is there, my children are there, and they are also over there. So that is the best approach to start with. So we take the responsibility, and then slowly, as a motivational factor, to motivate others that I have done this and this is the result. You are very rightly said that we should start plantation. Yes, next year you can show that this one I have started and this is the result. I agree. Number two is that you are very right, and it was already discussed that we should not go against the nature. It will hurt us. And as far as the rest of the disasters, those are human-made disasters. I'm going to discuss in this class related to civil conflicts, war, and that have long after effects. So your recommendations are very, very practical recommendations. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Caleb. Ajid Muhammad, can you activate your microphone? How are we doing on time, Muhammad Saghir? Do you want to go?
We are already up.
Hello?
And anyway, it depends.
Hello.
That we can continue this class now for another, whatever the mutual, I mean, decision is there, we can continue.
Because what I'm seeing is there's 6 more hands up, and that could be another 30 minutes. Do you want to limit it to another 2 questions?
Yeah, this is a good idea, but it doesn't mean that we are going to ignore these questions. Of course, in the coming slides, they will hopefully have their answers, and to their questions. It's good idea to have 2 more questions.
Okay, we'll have 2 more questions, but do you want to put your email in chat? If anybody has questions, they can send an email to you.
Yeah, in my introduction, that is there.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go back to Ajid Muhammad. Go ahead with your question. Can you activate your microphone? Let's try again. There you go.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh. Go ahead and try to activate your microphone again. Okay, we should be able to hear you now. Go ahead and speak.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. I am from Chad. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my questions. I have two questions. How can we reduce natural disaster? What are the solutions derived from nature? Question number two. Who bears responsibility for natural disaster risk mitigation? And thank
Yes,
you.
thank you very much for your questions. And in this class, we are going to discuss the 4 phases related to the disaster risk management. And you will be having the answers related to mitigation and how we can reduce the losses. That is the coming slides. We are going to discuss in detail.
So that will be the next time you come back to speak. Is that correct? So then the next time you come back to speak, you're going to cover this issue.
If after the after this presentation, he still has question, I hope he will be having answers after listening to these slides.
Okay.
The presentation.
Now we have one more question. So I'm going to choose someone who has not asked a question yet. So Ada George. Go
yes,
ahead.
thank you so much, Dr. Lambert and the presenter.
Hello,
I'm
good
from
to see you.
South. Yes, I'm
South
from
Africa?
South Sudan.
South Sudan.
South Sudan. South Sudan. I'm going to give a scenario or a situation of South Sudan. In the previous years, 2022, we had part of the country being affected by flooding. And what happened was the humanitarian actors, they managed to respond positively to the flooding by relocating people, by digging dike to the people around. And the government came up with a solution that there should be dredging of the river around the affected area. So there are 2 words that the government has used, that's dredging and clearing the river. So this brought a lot of misunderstanding in the country, where some people are like responding to the solution, others are having negative idea about the solution. So what happened was the government has to hire an expert to come and lecture the country on what should be done. So this brought a lot of debate in the country, looking at what will be the effect when the rivers are dredged in the affected areas, considering that we have natural resources in these rivers. And again, after that, they looked at what will happen, what will be the status of the river. And up to now, there is no stand solution being adopted by the government to manage the situation. And part of the country still remain affected by the flooding. And again, blocking part of the country, there's no accessibility, there's no roads, and so forth. My question is to Muhammad, as an expert, what do you think will have been the solution to this situation that the country is in? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. I would say that it's a matter of proper planning. I will define what is proper planning and proper preparedness. Normally, you have seen that once the plans are prepared, these are prepared sitting in the offices. I would not say it is across the globe, but I would say, as per my experience, in most of the cases. And what is improper? The improper is that the plan which you are making for the community, you are not discussing the plan with them, and you are not discussing the need of the community. So you have prepared a plan without involving the persons those are going to implement it. So it is the first step that when you try to identify the community needs, the community should be involved. It should not be the only community leader, it should be all, like women, children, adult, everyone, because they have their need and they are good to express them. Once you have collected that information, then you need to analyze it, and from expert point of view, according to the disasters, you can have short-term plans. There could be a different type of plans. There could be short-term plans and long-term plans. So if you have involved with the community at the time of implementation, you won't be having any resistance from the community. If you have not, then there will be, of course, resistance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed Saghir. I
You're
think
welcome.
that'll do
Thank
it.
you.
I think your time is up. We're looking forward for you to come back and talk about those mitigation measures, because that seems to be where this discussion needs to lead to. Now that you understand natural disasters, how do you really organize the community to prevent these things and reduce the impact? So, do you have anything more to add?
I have some more presentations, but as far as the time is concerned, again, if it suits to all the participants, then it's okay.
Did you not
Otherwise,
finish your presentation?
Not yet.
Oh, I thought when I saw the questions come up and you were taking questions, it looked like you had finished your presentation.
No, it is pending yet.
Oh, well, can you come back and finish up your presentation? Please?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Well, it's good that we had all that time for questions to talk about these things, and we look forward to having you back.
It would be my pleasure to be presenting this presentation again, having all these questions, and whatever the part is remaining, I would be having time to present in detail.
That's great. So I think if you had probably completed your presentation, there wouldn't have been time for questions. Seems. So, okay, so this will end this class, because this class is really scheduled for an hour and we've already gone over an hour. So we'll just have to come back and do it again and keep moving forward with the topic.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Okay. Do you want to put your email into chat, or do you want to wait for the students to have access to your PowerPoint presentation through the
Yeah.
AIU portal system?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think if they first go through the PowerPoint presentation, I hope some of the questions which they have in their mind, that will be answered. If not, then they can have my email address from there, and then they can ask, email me their questions. I'm ready to reply.
So everybody commit to writing an assignment on this topic, an essay, answering questions, getting more credits for this course, because this is an important topic that's going to be affecting everybody around the world at some point. What are natural disasters? What are natural hazards? What can human beings do about these? How are human beings causing these things? You know, get down, think about it, write an assignment and submit it. Submit your assignment, and hopefully you'll submit it within the next week, because you want to just sit down, think this through, and just write an essay of your thoughts, express your experiences.
May I add a suggestion over here?
Please.
Yeah, I would request all the participants, if they have time, they can view my past presentations on disaster risk management that was done on July 11th. And they will be having details to their questions which were already asked, or if they have more questions, then in the coming class, those could be answered. This will help to manage the time in terms of, so there will be no duplication of questions, because that was already covered. And of course, since there are new participants in that, that's good that they are taking very much interest and they are very actively participating it. It is good. I mean, it's very nice to have this kind of group and to present on this important topic. But my request would be to view the old presentation on my disaster risk presentation, which was held on July 11th.
Let me ask a question, Muhammad Saghir. Can you give us 3 questions that you would like the students to answer in an assignment? What 3 questions would you have them answer?
The first question is that, how can we involve the community in preparing the disaster risk management plan? And the second question is that, what are the existing resources those can cope with the problem, or the additional resources required? What could be the additional resources required which are needed by the community to cope with the disaster? What are the resources? But this will need a sort of a past trend of the disasters in their country and lesson learned. What were the lessons learned and how can we improve them? So the question is, what are the lessons learned related to past disasters and how can we improve? And the third question is that, how to involve the vulnerable groups. When I say vulnerable groups, it is children, women, and old person at the time of disaster management planning and implementation.
Okay, I think I'm trying to write the questions down there. How to involve the vulnerable groups in the planning process and implementation.
Yes.
What are the lessons learned related to disasters and how can we improve?
Yes.
What are the existing resources that can cope with the problems?
Yes.
And what additional resources required would be really great to have, correct?
Yeah. And related to that could be, for the sake of planning, how can we involve the community?
Yes, and the risk management plan.
Yes.
So you can see those questions. We just wrote them really fast into chat. You can take pictures. If you need to, just take out your phone and take a picture, go up and down the chat and take a picture of those questions. And then those are the questions that the lecturer, Muhammad Saghir, wants you to answer in your short essay. And look at your own community. Think about the resources in your own community. Think about the risks and the hazards and the disasters around where you live, and then answer those questions. Oh, there's a long post right now to chat. Okay, I think you're answering one of the questions. Okay, so I think that will do it for today. Thank you so much, Mohammed Saghir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And you are free to go now, and I will stay to answer questions about academic issues and courses.
And before concluding this class, I would like to thank you all for your time and active participation, of course. I hope the knowledge which you have and we have discussed and I have gained, it's not only you, it's also me that have gained the knowledge during this class that will be helpful to serve our community and to serve our own selves. And especially I would like to thank Dr. Lambert for his guidance and support during the class. I appreciate it very much. I would also like to thank the management of Atlantic International University, AIU, for inviting me for this class. And this is my 4th class with this university. I would say it was a nice meeting you all. I wish all of you best of luck and prosperity. Thank you very much for your active participation. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. I'm going to let everybody unmute their microphones in order to say thank you to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for participating.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you very much for your active participation. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. A wonderful, wonderful issue to be talking about. The world is having more and more natural disasters. Weather is going to extremes all around the world, so people need to be prepared. And so this is a very important topic for the future. Preparing for the future, the people need to start working on right away. So we look forward to your assignments, answering those questions that Mohammed Saghir gave you to answer in your assignment. And I can post into chat right now the actual assignment template that you can download. Assignment template is down there in chat. Just click on it, download it, and that'll help you write your essay. Oh, such an important topic when so many things are happening. I mean, just with the climate change, there was a glacier up in the north that was melting and created a flood for a few days. And houses were lost and property was lost. And it was because the glacier was melting so fast with these higher temperatures that we're experiencing this year. It created a natural disaster. And so climate change, and there's more glaciers all around the world that can actually melt really fast and create flooding. So I don't know if there are any glaciers left in Africa. I have a sense that they've all melted. If anybody knows the answer to that question, you can write that into chat. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about academic issues, thesis work, how to find research material, how to write an assignment, credits? I think we've been talking now for many weeks, and I have a sense that everybody has a really good idea that you just need to study, find material, whether it's videos or reading material on the internet, write your assignments and submit them. Keep moving, stay in the game. And if you find that you don't have time, you can find the time, because all you have to do is turn out the world for a few minutes and think about the courses that you're studying. Make the time in your own mind to think. about your courses and prepare. All right, we got some questions coming up. Okay. Karen says, what are the assignment questions? Okay, let's repeat the assignment questions that came from Muhammad Saghir. Let me go back and see. The first question is, how can we involve the community in preparing a risk management plan? I posted that at 9:18, well, 11:18. Well, I guess it depends on where you are. But how can we involve the community? So think about your community. How can you involve the community in preparing a risk management plan? Think about that, write it into an essay. Another question is, what are the existing resources that can cope with the problems of a natural disaster? And what additional resources would be required to cope with the disaster? So you're looking at existing resources and additional resources that would be really, really, really helpful to deal with disasters. Think about the resources and write about that in your assignment. Also, what are the lessons learned related to disasters? And so how can we improve? What lessons do you learn from disasters so that you know which resources you really need? And the last question is how to involve the vulnerable groups in the planning process and implementation of the planning. And the vulnerable groups are children, women, and the elderly. Okay. How can you involve children, women, and the elderly in this planning process and implementation of the plan? Okay, let's go back. I see here Dr. Peter Nkosi, sorry for the fire that has destroyed life and property in Hawaii. Yes, I think maybe some of you have seen that in the news where a hurricane 500 miles away from Hawaii was creating strong winds going across the ocean. And the winds came in kind of humid, but they rose up the mountain of the island of Maui. And as they came down the other side, the winds dried out. So they were dry winds that came down onto the town of Lahaina. And there was a fire, and the 60, well, I guess if you go look at kilometers, maybe 80 kilometers per hour speed of the winds just blew the fire right in and destroyed the town. And so people had to run very fast. People were running into the ocean to save their lives. And the fire spread so fast through the city and so hot that it jumped out into the ocean and burned the boats out into the ocean. You can see this was just 2 days ago. And I know a few people in Lahaina, people I grew up with, who went to high school with, and I can only hope that they are fine. And it's just an unusual weather pattern because usually the wind in Lahaina comes off of the ocean from the northwest. But this hurricane to the east was blowing the wind from the east into Hawaii at such a great speed. And the wind just came perfect to go up the mountain, down the other side, and dried out the wind and created perfect conditions for this fire. Very unusual. And it is really a result of climate change because climate change is creating these stronger hurricanes. We have yet to see what's going to happen in the hurricane season in the Caribbean area this year. I think it's going to be starting here in a week or two and going through September. So we just have to wait and see with those high temperatures in the ocean through the Caribbean are going to create strong hurricanes. We don't really know yet. We have to wait and see. Because the warm, hot temperatures have pushed this wind screen down very far, and it's changing the hurricanes, the way they're building and moving. So they don't know yet whether hurricanes are going to build correctly this year as in usual years. Just have to wait and see. Okay, so let's go to first question. Olukunle Okunoye. Go ahead and unmute your microphone to ask your question. Olunkunle?
Yeah, good afternoon, Doctor.
Hello, go ahead with your question.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much. I've listened to the session and quite a lot of contribution. It's quite educative. My question is about academics. I am a student, a doctorate degree student. I want to ask a question. At the end of the degree, is the degree West regulated? When I say West, that is West for Canada. Can the degree, is it allowed to be evaluated by West?
Can you? I'm not sure I understood the question. Say it again.
Okay. Okay, it's an academic question. I said the degree, the doctorate degree, or any degree from AIU, are they West, as in WES, are they West evaluated? You know, us in Nigeria, for some of us here in Nigeria,
So that's a type of accreditation, a WES?
WES is a Canadian,
Oh, I don't know.
World Educational Service, World Educational Service.
We have an expert. I'm not the expert on this type of issue at AIU, so I would actually have you. Let me.
Okay.
I'm going to send you a private message so you can get the email of the person to contact.
Okay.